over 100 head of Hans Lochenberg's cattle. But in this correspondence, it's quite clear that Hans is the kind of chief of this area in many ways. Okay? People pay tribute to him. The Bushman groups have sided with him. The Western and Pondamese, under a man called Mandela, have agreed to pay tribute to him. Okay? And there are other people that have also paid tribute to him. And this goes back to his father's death in part. The reason he comes in here, we know from a letter that Finn writes, Finn actually met Hans Lochenberg round about the time of Nicholas's death, although it's not clear. But Hans went to a remnant of the Kwabi tribe. They eventually get destroyed, but there's some remnants living there. And he demands tribute for the fact that they killed his father. And they give him 3 cows and an elephant tusk. Okay. Finn observed this. It's a group called Manyabe. And Finn was not happy with this. But anyway, the Kwabi weren't in a position to negotiate. Now Finn is back in the area 20 years later. And what does he hear? He hears that Hans Lochenberg is still getting tribute from these guys. Okay? And he's just gone to ask for some more. All right? But it's quite clear that Hans is acknowledged, okay, as a leader and a chief to this. And there's a letter here from Finn to Jenkins, and where he just describes it. Says, when Mandela, who's the head of the Pondamese, was attacked as above, Hans Lochenberg proposed Mandela's submission to him, and 20 or 25 head of cattle were given to Hans Lochenberg as tokens of submission. So that means that this group of Pondamese recognized Hans as the leader, okay, which is perhaps interesting for you guys. The missionaries didn't want this to happen, and they said, no, you must give the cattle back. And then Hans and Mandela reached an agreement, okay, don't worry about the missionaries, we'll just do it under the table and everything's squared, okay? So it's quite clear that Hans is the leader of this. There's a second bit of evidence that suggests this, in that Finn wants to know who is the chief of all of these people that have been implicated in these cattle thefts, because he wants to take the cattle from the chief and make the chief bring all the subordinates in line. And so he goes around and he asks a whole bunch of these guys, and it turns out that all of these guys who are on Pondamese recognize Hans as their leader, and he says these guys have 14 men, but the whole number of Hans's followers number about 200 people. Okay? So Hans has kind of picked up where his dad left off and established himself as a big man in this Mzimvubu River area. Okay? Well, to cut a long story short, Finn is, in taking the cattle, oversteps the mark. The missionaries get very upset with him, and they write to the various colonial powers, and eventually the colonial powers send out Walter Harding, after whom the town Harding is named after, to investigate Finn. And Harding produces a list of 22 remedies, and he says Finn was wrong in some cases, right in other cases. And there's been much pressure since 1849 all the way till when Harding comes there in 1851 for Finn to return Hans's cows, but he never actually does return all of them. Okay? So it's a bit of an issue. And during this period, Hans leaves this Mzimvubu River area. Okay? But one letter Finn says he's on the Mthatha River. And another thing that we then encounter in 1851, which is Thomas Baines, on the Tsonga River, which is a tributary of the Great Khan, much closer to Butterworth. And bearing in mind that Hans would have grown up in those areas, he knew that area. Thomas Baines, the artist, meets him at the river, and he acts as Baines' guide. Now, something I'm going to tell you, which we couldn't actually put up today, we actually have a picture of Hans Lochenberg, a drawing made by Thomas Baines. In fact, Angela found this, and there appears to be a second one. Okay. We haven't got permission from the archive to use it, but we will get permission, and we're going to give you a copy. Okay, it's a drawing, a pencil drawing of Hans Lochenberg. Only known image of the guy. Okay. All right. So this is just a description by Baines. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but again, like his dad, he's got assegais, but he's also got a roo, which is this big musket. He's also a hunter, and not quite as good as his dad, but he's quite an adept hunter, because Baines talks about him shooting a hippo many times, and he's getting angry with this hippo. And eventually he kills this hippo, and when he cuts the hippo open, there's an old bullet near the heart. And Hans says, "This is the same bugger I tried to shoot 2 years ago." And it's my bullet that didn't quite get to the heart. Okay? So, I mean, he's also a hunter, okay, and he's moving between these worlds. Okay, there's a description on that. All right. Then the record about Hans mostly goes silent because the correspondence disappears. There are some accounts of marriage shortly after this, and this is where you guys will come in because you'll know some of this. In 1854, Charles Finn marries Mary Lochenberg. So when we're looking at this, we're thinking, but this is 2 years ago, Henry Francis Finn and Hans Lochenberg hated each other. Okay? And their children are now getting married. Okay? So what does this do for, it's really interesting, what happens to their relationship? You know, there's not too much information about it, but it's just really intriguing. And then in 1858, you all know this, Duke of Finn marries Sarah Lochenberg. Okay? Now, there is one last account, substantive account that we found. It's not to say that there aren't any more than what we've looked at. And this is in a newspaper report, in a newspaper called Cape Monitor, which is exceptionally difficult to get hold of now. But it was republished. The report comes from 1859, but it was republished in a journal called African Studies, so we have that copy. And this is somebody called Mr. Rochlan or something, who meets Hans. Okay, and this is how he describes Hans. Okay, and you can see that the language is laced with sarcasm. It's again this kind of discourse of disposition. So a notable arrived here under the timorous appellation of Hans Lochenberg, if he gets that wrong, by his own statement is to receive medical aid. But the report says he has actually come down to obtain permission from the government to attack on the east. Okay. Mr. Hans, or Mynheer Hans, as some have it, gives himself out as a great man. You have only to look at the man and listen to him for 5 minutes, and himself, 5 minutes, and you will be convinced. I've had the felicity, and I cannot refrain from penning the result. He speaks English fluently and very correctly. Okay, so even through the sarcasm, this guy identifies this guy that Hans is not a fool. Okay. In appearance, he is a stout-built man, about 50 years of age, resembling a patriarchal Boer. But on close examination, you find a peculiar flatness of the nostrils, and you get all the kind of European nonsense coming through there. There's very German settlements of the Ims and Boer. Okay. The refugees of the Dutch farmers had someone intermarried with all of these people. The dress, and he's right, with the retinue. He's got a whole lot of followers with him there. Okay, where this rocking meeting. And anyway, Hans gets a little bit drunk, and Mr. Rochling tries to chase him or chafe him for drinking, and said, "But you know, what about your brother? Who's this Michelin guy?" And says, "Come on." But importantly, what he says here, he says, "I'm a great man in my country. I have 200 guns and 900 shields." Okay? And the other people that are with him talk about the farms and the stuff that they're farming. And they're all talking about the Umzimbubu area. Okay? So Hans, it appears, left for a while when Finn was there and things got a little bit heated, but then he goes back. Okay? And he just picks up from where he left off and perhaps goes even further. He's got a whole lot of farms. But when he's talking about 200 guns and 900 shields, you know, maybe he's had too much to drink, maybe it's a bit of a boast. But all the other evidence does suggest this guy had quite a big following, and he was a significant player in the area. Right, then the last account is that in 1864, Hans Lochenberg helped take a guy called Captain Turner to go and find Grey Bess, who's one of these people that Nicholas Lochenberg encountered, who's one of the survivors of a British vessel prior to the wreckage of the Grosvenor. And that is the kind of last time that we sort of hear about Hans in the stuff that we've looked at. Okay, it's not to say that there isn't other stuff that they haven't yet found. And this is the same map, just to put Hans's life in perspective. By the time Hans is, these are all the mission stations, the Wesley mission stations with the dates. Remember, his dad helped at Wally in 1829. And Hans is very much involved in these two mission stations, Palmerton and Shawbury, which are around this sort of area, and particularly this one up in the headwaters of the Mzimbubu area. So this section of no man's land, particularly what's called the Upper Tina and the Upper Tsitsa River, is the area where the Lochenberg family seems to have had a significant amount of influence. They're not the only players there, there are other people there too, but it's quite clear they are major leaders in that area. All right, so that's going to be the end of what I'm going to tell you today. And I'm just going to tell you what the next steps are, because this is a work in progress. It's not going to be done anytime soon, I'm afraid. I mentioned to you earlier about the problem with the genealogies. Right? If we start looking on the internet, you can find the genealogies, but actually one needs to see the actual physical birth records, death records, and so on, which means you have to go to the places where those are kept. It's always clear where those are, and it becomes a nightmare. We think that a much better way, or a much more efficient way, is to work backwards. So if I find something in the archival records about the marriage of a Finn to a Lochenberg, you guys will probably already know that. And we feel that rather than start from that point and figure out how things went from there, we have a community that's exceptionally well versed in who's related to who's uncle to who's auntie to who, and so on. But you could actually, it's better to work your way backwards and to take a genealogy and oral history, as it were, and see how people today connect to those characters in the past. Then there's a whole string of gaps or questions. I know earlier on somebody said you're going to get lots of answers today. Every answer produces a new question. So there's lots of really interesting questions, all right? And I mentioned some of these to you. Did Nicholas live in two worlds? Did he give up his colonial lifestyle, or did he actually have one foot in there all the time, for much of his life? That seems unclear, and we'd like to know more about that, and we're going to try and see if we can find some more about that. Then we're quite intrigued to find out where Finn first meets Hans, because it's unclear in the correspondence. There's the name of a river given, but we can't locate that river. So we'd like to know precisely where that is, because it might allow us to begin to map areas on the maps I showed you are quite general. We might be able to be more specific about various things. And then particularly want to fill in the period from 1864 to Hans's death. And perhaps most importantly of all, and perhaps the thing that I think many of you are interested in, is what is the nature of Hans's leadership in the latter part of the 19th century? This guy's clearly an important player. How does he keep control of his forces and his base, as were, as colonialism encroaches and begins to undermine all of those authority mechanisms? And so then we want to check the birth and death records where possible. Right? There's still quite a lot of other archival material, but unfortunately much of it is, the missionary stuff is actually housed in London on microfiche. We're going to put in a grant to try and get the microfiches here. That's about 150,000 rand. So some of these things are going to take time. Anyway, that's all I've got to say. I hope I haven't told you everything that you know. There was something new here, but if you want to, I'm happy to take questions. And I can give the PowerPoint to you. I've got a Word document from which it's drawn. I don't want to give all of that just out yet, because there are things I'm still checking in that. But I'm happy to share whatever we've got that we can assist with. Thank you very much.
Guys, I know we're feeling like we need a break. It's dealing with academia. But I don't want to just lose traction. The other talks are going to be quite brief.